Hey everyone, this is Lynn Wilson with Lynn Wilson Originals here in Mills River, North Carolina, and today I'm working on this Jacobean hutch, China hutch. It is painted in Dixie Belle drop cloth, which is a nice sort of a white with a brown undertone, and on the inside, you can just barely see it here, I've used sea glass, a little pop of color. Now, the issue that I had with this, if you see here, this woodwork that's inside, in order to try to get that white, I would have to pop it out. It's in a frame, and I just really didn't think that I could do that without breaking it. Plus, I don't really have great carpentry skills. So what I tried to do first was distress to try to bring out some of the wood down here, and you can barely even see it, what I've done, and it just wasn't enough. So the next thing, I've decided to paint some of this brownish color on the details in order to tie in to the wood above. And I usually paint with chalk paint, but I didn't have, and Dixie Belle I believe has a color called chocolate that would work great, but I did not have that available. So I'm just using some acrylic paint from Michaels, and thought I would show you some of the things. This is a nice area to do because you stay within the lines. So let's go ahead and get started here. And when I paint with an artist brush in small areas like this, I always pull my paint towards me. And I try not to get too much on the brush. I did 2 coats on the other side, and I'm going to need at least 2 or 3 coats. And this brush, it's a nice brush, Winsor & Newton, they make really nice brushes. And it is just sort of a flat brush so that I'm able to get to these edges. And I'm not too concerned right now that it's not, even. I just want to get that first coat on. And so I'm going to have to move because I do want to be pulling the paint towards me. And I'm right-handed, so coming to the right side allows me to brace my hand on the piece of furniture. And I like to do this with the piece standing up because that is how it's going to be seen. I painted the inside with the piece on its back because it's just much easier to do. And if I get little, you can see, there we go. And I'm not too worried. If I get little spots here, I'll go back and touch it up with an even smaller artist brush. But sometimes I do mix chalk paint and acrylics if I just am trying to find the right color. So now to pull the paint towards me, I'll go back to the other side. And I put my paint in just this disposable little palette because I want to, before I put my brush up, I get some paint on it, but then I kind of take a little paint off. So a lot of this unevenness will get taken care of in my second coat. So in order to get this, again, I'm going to move so that I can pull my paint up towards me. Again, I can use the furniture to brace my hand. It's much harder if your hand doesn't have something to brace against. And this is where the more expensive artist brushes are good. I have several other brushes here that I looked at using, and you know, I just got them at Michael's. They weren't expensive at all, came in a pack, but you can see how they've kind of frayed out on the ends, and that makes it harder to get up to that edge, whereas this one, which is the Winsor Newton, you know, I've had it for a while and it's still really tight. I did a Jacobian buffet not too long ago, and it's on my Instagram, Lynn Wilson Originals, and you can see it. It had a lot of hand painting details. That one I did in Savannah Mist, which is a really pretty light blue. And I added gold and drop cloth and outlined these indentations here in black. And that was really tough. I am not going to do that again. It's very hard to get it clean. I used a super small artist brush, and even then it wasn't completely precise, but from, you know, a foot away you don't notice it. But it's definitely easier to paint details where there's an edge like this that you can work against. Painting details like on these pieces right here is much harder because you don't have a definite edge. I tried to do it, you can see on the other side, let's see, try not to destroy the camera here. You can see that ring right here. That's much harder to do because there wasn't a precise line that an edge that I could go to. In fact, I'm probably going to paint over that white, because really what I want to do is try to tie in the brown that's already up here to down below. So now this inside panel here is also going to be relatively easy to paint because I have this edge that I can just tip up against with my brush, pulling away from the edge and towards me. And you might wonder, well, if you're going to leave that brown, why didn't you just, you know, leave it as the wood? But the wood wasn't in great shape, and somebody had put a weird stain on it. To prep this piece, I used Dixie Belle's Slick Stick, and you can find the Dixie Belle products, you know, the paints that I used and Slick Stick in the link in the description of this video. But the reason I used Slick Stick was because it was very heavily varnished. I think somebody had tried to refinish it and used a thick lacquer or poly to seal it. And so I had a pretty good idea that my paint was not going to stick. And Slick Stick works great to help your paint stick. The only drawback that I've found is, you know, it's white. You can get the other Dixie Belle primers. It's a primer called Boss, and that blocks odors and stains and bleed through, but it doesn't necessarily deal with helping your paint stick. And Boss comes in clear, so if you're going to paint like brown or dark color, you would choose the clear. Whereas the Slick Stick is only white, and when I've painted a dark color over it, sometimes I have a problem with little white dots keeping to pop through my paint. So when I use Slick Stick, I generally like to stick with a lighter color. Although I actually just finished a piece. It was a modern piece from Broyhill, and it had that slick factory finish on it. And I did use Slick Stick, and I painted it in dark blues. And you know, I just had to go back and put little with an artist brush, go over the little spots that popped up white. And you can avoid some of that by making sure you sand your Slick Stick before you start painting. But sometimes you just will have little rough spots that still show through. But anyway, I just want to come on and show you sort of how I paint details. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And I'd love it if you would follow me and like my Facebook page, Lynn Wilson Originals. And I hope you have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.